Lesson 13, September 18 to 24, The Ultimate Rest. The memory text of this week's lesson is found in 1 Corinthians 2 verse 9, which says, "But as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love Him." Have you ever felt that you were in the midst of great battle? A kind of struggle between good and evil? Many, even secular people, have sensed this reality, and we feel that way because, well, it's true. We are in the great battle between good and evil, between Christ the good and Satan the bad. Life then is really being played out on two levels. The great controversy between Christ and Satan is taking place on a global scale. In fact, even a cosmic level, for in heaven is where it first began. In Revelation 12 verse 7 says, "Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back." Yet, in the confusion of events, we can easily lose the big picture of God's escape plan for this world. Wars, political unrest, and natural disasters can hold us in helpless terror. But God's prophetic guidance can help us keep in mind the big picture of where we are going and how we will get there. The great controversy also is being played out on a much more personal level. All of us individually face challenges in our everyday life. And if we die before the second coming of Jesus, we will face death too. This week, we'll look at how we can rest in Jesus in the face of global unrest and our own unknown future. At least, in the short term, in the long term, things look very promising indeed. Sunday, September 19, a vision of the end. The oldest surviving disciple actually to have been with Jesus sat on a rocky, frozen island, far from everything that was near and dear to him. What must have been going on in John's mind as he found himself stranded on this desolate island? How did he wind up there? Unlike these two, after all, he had seen Jesus live, and he had seen the two angels standing there saying, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand gazing up into heaven? The same Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven will soon come in like manner as you saw him go into heaven." That, however, had been years and years ago, and Jesus had not yet returned. Meanwhile, the other apostles present on that day already had died, most of them martyred for the witness about Jesus. The young church had undergone a generational change and was now facing horrible persecution from the outside and strange heretical movements from within. John must have felt alone, tired and restless. And then suddenly, he was given a vision. What comfort can you imagine that John got from this vision? Read Revelation. "I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation and the kingdom and the patient endurance that are in Jesus, was on the island called Patmos on account of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. I was in the spirit of the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet, saying, 'Write what you see in a book, and send it to the 7 churches, to Ephesus, and to Smyrna, and to Pergamum, and to Thyatira, and to Sardis, and to Philadelphia, and to Laodicea.' Then I returned to see the voice that was speaking to me, and on turning I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the lamp stands one like a son of man, clothed with a long robe and with a golden sash around his chest. The hairs of his head were white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace, and his voice was like the roar of many waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars. From his mouth came a sharp two-edged sword, and his face was like the sun shining in full strength. Then I saw him. I fell at his feet as though dead. But he laid his right hand on me, saying, "Fear not, I am the first and the last, and the living one. I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of death and Hades. Write therefore the things that you have seen, those that are, and those that are to take place after days." Jesus had told his followers, "Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Words that no doubt must have encouraged John as he faced his lonely exile. Surely his vision, this revelation of Jesus, must have been great comfort to him, knowing that Jesus, the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, now was manifesting himself in a special way to the exiled apostle. What followed from these verses were visions about the future of this world. An awesome panoramic view of history will be portrayed before him. Basically, what's to us the history of the Christian church, but was to him its future. And yet, amid the trials and tribulation that would come, John was shown how it would all end. "Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband." The great apocalyptic vision John has recorded in Revelation helped John confidently to rest in God's provisions and promises. Life now can be hard, even fearful at times. How does knowing that God knows the future and that the future long term is good give us comfort now? In Monday's lesson, the countdown. On the Mount of Olives, Jesus painted history in broad strokes as he responded to questions of the disciples. "Tell us, what will these things be? And what will be the signs of your coming and of the end of the age?" Jesus' famous sermon, recorded in Matthew 24, covers the uninterrupted historical time line from his days until the second coming and beyond. Jesus wanted to give his people throughout the ages a rough sketch of the divine schedule for end-time purposes, so that those living at the end of time could be prepared for the ultimate event. He wanted us to be able to rest confidently in his love, even when everything around us is falling apart. Adventists know well Daniel's description of a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. Jesus wants us to be prepared for this event, which precedes his second coming. What will his coming be like? How can we avoid being deceived? In Matthew 24:4-8, and Jesus answered them, "See that no one else leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All this are but the beginning of the birth pains. Jesus' coming will be a literal event at the end of time, considering the space given in prophecy to his return, and even in Jesus' sermons, this is a big deal. The last time there was a worldwide climatic event, only 8 people in all the world were ready for it. Jesus compares the unexpectedness of the second coming to that event, the flood. But although no one knows the day or hour of the second coming, God has given us a prophetic countdown that we can watch happening in the world around us. We have been given a role to fulfill in this prophetic drama. What is our part? In Matthew 24:19-14, which says, "Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another, and many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." In this cosmic conflict, we are more than just observers. We are to be active participants in the spreading of the gospel to the end of the world, which means that we too will face persecution. What does it mean to endure the end? How do we do that? What choices do we need to make every day in order not to fall away? As many have done, as many will do. Tuesday, September 21. Marching orders. The prophetic big picture of history doesn't just allow us to sit back and do nothing as events unfolds, events that we really can't control. So often the attitude can be, well, final events are going to happen as predicted. So what can we do about it other than just simply go along with them? After all, what can I alone do? But that's not how Christians are to relate to the world around them, and especially to final events. Revelation 4:10 tells us that our purpose at this time in history is to tell others about God's judgment and help them prepare for the second coming of Christ. And Revelation 14:6-12 says, "Then I saw another angel flying directly overhead with an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who dwell on earth, to every nation and tribe and language and people. And he said with a loud voice, 'Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heavens and earth, the sea and the springs of waters.' Another angel, a second, followed, saying, 'Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink the wine of the passions of her sexual immorality.' And another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, 'If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, these worshippers of the beast and its image, and whoever receives the marks of its name.' Here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus." What is being taught here, and what are we to proclaim to the world? Why is this message of such urgency. As Adventists, we believe that present truth is found especially in these verses that are referred to as the three angels' messages. Here we find the essence of what our calling is at this time in Earth's history. Notice it starts out with the everlasting gospel, the wonderful news of Christ's death and resurrection, upon which our only hope of salvation rests. There also is the message that the hour of His judgment has come, a powerful remark that points to the end of time. Then too, there is the call to worship the one who made heaven and earth. In contrast to the fearful warning about those who, staying in Babylon, worship the beast in his image, finally, there is the deception of God's end-time people. Here is the presence of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. In Revelation 14 verse 11 says, "And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night. These worshippers of the beast and its image, and whoever receives the mark of its name." What does it say about the lack of rest for those who worship the beast and his image? No rest day or night for those who worship the beast and his image? Though various ideas exist regarding what this exactly means, all would agree that these people do not experience the kind of rest that God offers those who are faithful to Him. Why do you think the first part of three angels' messages is the everlasting gospel? Why must we keep these wonderful truths always before us? We proclaim these messages to the world. How is understanding the gospel so central to the concept of rest? Wednesday, September 22. Rest in peace. For long centuries now, Christians have been awaiting Christ's return. It is truly the culmination of our hopes, and not just ours, but the hopes of all God's faithful throughout all history. In Hebrews 13, these all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared for them a city. In many ways, these verses make no sense if the common and popular version of this were true. What is the passage talking about? These people not having received the promises, their dead supposedly now up in heaven with Jesus enjoying their great reward. When, for example, Billy Graham died, again and again we heard how he was now in heaven with Jesus. There is an irony too in this view, because often when someone dies, we hear many he or she rest in peace. But what is going on here? Are such people resting in peace, or are they up in heaven doing whatever they supposed to be doing, such as watching all the fun down here? How does Jesus describe this? In John 11 verse 11 says, "After saying these things, He said to them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him." In fact, the idea of the resting in peace is, of course, the truth about what happened at death, isn't it? The dead truly are at rest. To the believer, death is but a small matter. Christ speaks of it as if it were a little moment. If a man My saying, he shall never see death, he shall never taste of death. To the Christians, death is but a sleep, a moment of silence and darkness. The life is hid with Christ in God, and when Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Jesus compares a person's conditions between death and resurrection, morning to an unconscious sleep, but he also emphasizes that both the saved and the lost will receive their reward after the resurrection. He highlights the necessity of being prepared for death whenever it comes. What comfort do you get from knowing that your deceased loved ones are indeed now at rest? Thursday, September 23. Rejoice in the Lord always. One of the most used apps on our smartphones is Google Maps. Most of us cannot remember what we did before GPS-based maps existed on our phones. We may be nervous heading toward a place that we have never been to before. But with Google Maps on our phones, we can confidently venture out and find our way in any foreign city. Could this confidence be an illustration of the kind of rest God wants to give us with His prophetic timetable? Sometimes, however, we may enter the wrong address into our apps, or we may just decide not to follow the directions because we think we know a shortcut. In either case, we may end up somewhere we didn't want to be, and most definitely, not in a restful frame of mind either. What is Paul saying here to us about the way to have true rest, true peace, even amid our hurried and painful world? In Philippians 4:4-6 says, Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. In this passage, Paul is not saying to rejoice always in all the trials that you are facing. Instead, he is saying rejoice in the Lord always. No matter our present situation, no matter what trials we are facing, if we dwell on God, on His goodness, His love, and on His sacrifice on the cross, for us we can rejoice in Him and have peace for our weary souls. Just the very tone of the text implies rest, peace, and a transcendent hope of something beyond this world. Imagine, too, that kind of rest for our souls that we would have if, indeed, we could be anxious for nothing. This hardly seems realistic for anyone in this world. Even Paul, had plenty of worries, but again, knowing that a loving God is ultimately in control and will see us into His kingdom, can surely help us put the things that we are anxious about into proper perspective. The Lord is at hand. That is, He is always close to us. And as soon as we close our eyes and rest in the sleep of death, the next thing we know is the return of Christ. No question, life is full of tensions, trials, and struggles. None of us escaped them. Certainly, the Apostle Paul didn't either. Nevertheless, his point is to tell us that even with all that we endure now, we can rejoice in what we have been given in Christ, and indeed we can find rest for our souls. In Corinthians, it says here, I wish you would bear with me in a little foolishness. Though bear with me, I feel a divine jealousy for you, for I betrothed you to one husband, to present you as a pure virgin to Christ. But I am afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his cunning, your thoughts will be led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. For if someone comes and proclaims another Jesus, that's the one we proclaim. Or if you receive a different spirit from the one you receive, or if you accept the different gospel from the one you accepted, you put up with it readily enough. I consider that I am not in the least inferior to these super apostles. Even if I am unskilled in speaking, I am not so in knowledge. Indeed, in every way we have made this plain to you in all things. Or did I commit a sin in humbling myself so that you might be exalted, because I preach God's gospel to you free of charge? I rob other churches by accepting support from them in order to serve you. And when I was with you and was in need, I did not burden anyone, for the brothers who came from Macedonia supplied my need, so I refrain and will refrain from burdening you in any way. As the truth of Christ is in me, this boasting of mine will not be silenced in the regions of Acacia. And why? Because I do not love you? God knows I do. And what I do will continue to do in order to undermine the claim of those who would like to claim that in their boasted mission they work on the same terms as we do. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as a servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds. I repeat, let no one think me faultless, but even if you do, accept me as a fool, so that I too may boast a little. When I am saying with this boasted confidence, I say not with the Lord's authority, but as a fool. Since many boasted according to the flesh, I too will boast. For you gladly bear with fools, being wise yourselves. For you bear it if someone makes slaves of you, or devours you, or takes advantage of you, or puts on airs, or strikes you in the face. To my shame I must say, we were too weak for that. But whatever anyone else dares to boast of, I am speaking as a fool, as also dare to boast of that. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? So am I, a better one. I'm thinking like a madman. With far greater labors, far more imprisonment, with countless bearings and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea. On frequent journeys, in danger from robbers, dangers from robbers, dangers from my own people, dangers from Gentiles, dangers in the city, dangers in the wilderness, dangers at sea, dangers from false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many sleepless nights, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure, and apart from other things, there is the daily pressure on me of many anxiety for all the churches. Who is weak, and who I am not weak? Who is made to fall, and I am not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. The God and Father of the Lord Jesus, He who is blessed forever, knows that I am not lying. At Damascus, the governor under King Aretas was guarding the city of Damascus in order to seize him, but I was let down in a basket through a window in the wall and escaped his hand. Again, in what ways can you apply these wonderful words to your experience right now in whatever trials and tribulations you are facing? Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving let your request be made known to God. Friday, further thought. We all desire immediate and direct answers to our prayers, and are tempted to become discouraged when the answers is delayed or comes in and look for form. But God is too wise and good to answer our prayers always at just the time and in just the manner we desire. He will do more and better for us than to accomplish all our wishes. And because we can trust His wisdom and love, we should not ask Him to concede to our will, but should seek to enter into and accomplish His purpose. Our desires and interests would be lost in His will. Ellen G. White, Gospel Workers, page 219. It will only be a little while before just will come to save His children and to give them the finishing touch of immorality. The graves will be opened, and the dead will come forth victorious, crying, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? Our loved ones who slept in Jesus will come forth clothed with immortality. Think about the reality of the great controversy. How do you see it being played out in the world? How about in your own personal life? It's very real, isn't it? In fact, it's more real than many people think, because many don't believe in a literal devil. Why is understanding the reality of the great controversy is important in helping us to understand the state of our world? Also, why is our understanding of how this great controversy will end so comforting? Prophecy can be distractions if we try to go beyond what is clearly revealed. How often have church members gotten in trouble making predictions about events that didn't come to pass, or believing in others predictions that didn't come to pass? How can we protect ourselves from falling into that kind of trap? In class, go over Revelations 14:9 to 11 and the questions about those who worship the beast and his image not having rest. What might that mean? A controversial topic in the church has to do with what role we do or do not have in the timing of Christ's return. Whatever positions one makes in this, why is it still very important that we take an active role in spreading the message of His return to the world? Provided by the General Conference Office of Adventist Missions, which uses Sabbath School mission offerings to spread the gospel worldwide. And that's the end of our lesson review.